Meanwhile, we're going to talk about active and passive voice. I want to reinforce that a little bit. That's something that I think some of you are still struggling with. So active means that you're engaged in action, right? If you don't think about grammar, just think about the word active. If I'm active, I'm doing something, right? I'm engaged in action. If I'm passive, I'm not participating actively, right? I'm just sitting there kind of mouth breathing or drooling or whatever, right? I'm just existing. So we want our writing to be active as well. So let's look. It's all about the subject. When we're deciding if something is active or passive voice, it's all about the subject. If the subject is active, in other words, doing something, subject did something, the subject will do something, it's active voice. For example, Ralph ate the ice cream. The subject is Ralph, and Ralph did that. He was actively involved in eating the ice cream, as you can see from the picture. If the subject is passive or receiving the action, or did receive or will receive the action, it's passive voice. The ice cream was eaten by Ralph. Here, the ice cream is the subject, and the ice cream isn't doing anything. It's just sitting there in the cone being attacked by Ralph, right? Do you see the difference between our subject, Ralph, who's actively eating the ice cream, and our subject, ice cream, that's just sitting there, maybe dripping a little, but otherwise not doing anything? Also, we have this one. The ice cream was eaten. Now, this one's even worse because we don't know who it is that ate it. So here we at least know that Ralph did it. Here we don't even know who did it. Maybe we don't want to tell. So when we write, we're aiming for active voice instead of passive voice, and we'll talk about why here in just a minute. Let's look at a couple of other examples. Again, if the subject is active, we have Lauren will drive the car. So even if it's in the future, if it's in the past, if it's right now, Lauren will actively drive the car. She will be doing that. Passive, the car will be driven by Lauren. So you see that the verb tense doesn't make any difference. Whether it's present tense, past tense, future tense, that has nothing to do with active and passive voice. And a lot of times students think that passive voice is past tense, that somehow those are the same thing. Not at all the same thing. They have really nothing to do with each other. All right, so here's passive voice. The car is now the subject. The car will be driven by Lauren. The car isn't doing anything. The car is just sitting there getting driven. Okay, so the car is passive, and the object of the preposition over here, Lauren, is the one who's doing the action. Well, we don't want our objects of the prepositions doing the action. We want our subjects doing the action. So we want to move Lauren out of the object of the preposition spot, put her in the subject spot, or the driver's seat, if you will, so she can drive the car. All right, every passive voice has two parts. This is a good way to know for sure if you have a passive voice. Verb. So they start with a to-be verb as the helping verb. And the to-be verbs are is, be, am, are, was, were, been, and being. So if you have a verb phrase that starts with one of those helper verbs, you could have passive voice. Not always, but you could. So the other thing that it has to have is a past participle, which is an action verb in the past tense. So if you have this combination, it's okay to have a past participle, it's okay to have a be verb, but if you have them together, a be verb plus a past participle, then you're looking at passive voice. So here, let's look at an example. The mouse is being chased by the cat. We have is, that's a be verb. Being, that's another be verb. They're both being used as helping verbs. Chased is a past tense verb. So is being chased is passive voice because it's the cat, the object of the preposition over here, that's doing the action. The mouse is also probably running, right? Nevertheless, the mouse is receiving the action here. So even though the mouse isn't technically passive, the mouse is not doing the chasing. So we're looking at the object of the preposition doing the actual action in the sentence. The mouse is not doing the action, it's having the action done to it. The dishes were broken by the kids. Were is a be verb, broken is a past tense verb. So we have passive voice. The dishes were broken. Who did the breaking? The kids did, but they're over here in the object of as the object of the preposition. The dishes were broken and the dishes didn't do any breaking themselves. They just received the breaking. They were passive. The decision will be made. Here's another be verb, literally the verb be, and a past tense verb, made. So be made is passive voice. Here we don't even know who made the decision, do we? We just know that it was made. So the decision, the subject, is not doing anything. It's not active. It's just sitting there getting made. See how that works? Not passive voice. These are not passive voice. We have purchased a new home. Here you have a past tense verb, but have is not a be verb. It's a have verb. So we have just a regular verb here. This is action, or sorry, not action, active voice, because we have the subject we, and we are the ones who actually did the purchasing. Okay, so our subject is active. You are learning about passive voice. We have a be verb, but we don't have an ed, we have an ing verb after it. Also, is our subject doing the learning? Yes, you are the subject and you are actually learning. So that's active. Sam was writing a paper. We have a be verb, yes, but not a past tense with it. And was the subject actually active? Yes, Sam is the subject and Sam actually was doing the writing. So he was active. The kids were who broke the dishes. That's horrible. It's a terrible sentence, but it's still not passive because it's the kids who broke the dishes. The kids were. All right, so how to turn passive voice into active voice. First, you want to figure out who or what is doing the action. And a lot of times you're going to find that in the prepositional phrase. Sometimes it's not there at all. So in the mouse is being chased by the cat, the person or the thing doing the action is the cat, right? So we found the cat. Now we're going to make that thing the subject. The cat is chasing the mouse. So we've turned this passive voice sentence into an active voice sentence. Let's look at another one. Again, figure out who or what is doing the action. Make that person or thing the subject. The dishes were broken by the kids. Who did it? The kids did. So let's move the kids to the subject. The kids broke the dishes. Now it's active because the subject is doing the breaking or did the breaking. Let's look at one more. Figure out who or what is doing the action. The decision will be made. We don't really know this time who's doing the action, but we need to either guess or find out, and then we can make that person or thing the subject. So here, let's say that the judge did. So the judge will make the decision. If we don't know, you can literally just say, someone will make the decision if you don't know who it is, right? Occasionally we do use passive voice. So let's take a look at some times when we would do that. Is it grammatically wrong? Is passive voice grammatically wrong? It's not. It's actually stylistically yucky. So it doesn't sound good, and there's some reasons I'm going to show you in just a minute why it's stylistically yucky, but it's not technically a grammar mistake. It's more of a stylistic mistake. So let's look at why. Well, first of all, it's wordy. Let's look at an example. These examples are being explained by Mrs. Burnette. See how that's wordy? It's much more direct and clear to say Mrs. Burnette is explaining these examples. See how that works? Fewer words, more direct. It's not convoluted. I don't have to think about what the sentence means. It's very clear. It's often vague or avoids blame. Let's look at this example. Much damage has been done to our property. Who did the damage? Was it a storm? Were they vandals? Do you have bears? I have bears. Where we live, maybe it was bears. All right, so if we use passive voice, sometimes it's vague and we don't really know who it is that's doing something. Sometimes we want to avoid blame, so we might do it on purpose, but most of the time passive voice is wordy. So when is it okay to use passive voice? It is sometimes okay. So if you want to avoid blame, you can use passive voice. For example, mistakes were made in the planning stages. I don't really want to say who made the mistakes. Maybe I did, but I don't want to admit that. So I'm just going to say mistakes were made. When you want to emphasize the action or the recipient of the action instead of the actor. So maybe you want to emphasize the person who was passively there and not the person that did it, right? So for example, Matt was injured in a bicycle accident. So this is passive voice, was injured. Maybe we know who did it, but we don't want to pass blame. Or maybe we don't know who did it, but maybe we do know who did it. And we just don't want to give that person front and center in our sentence. Maybe we don't want to spotlight that person who injured Matt. We want the focus to be on Matt. So we're going to say Matt was injured in a bicycle accident, even though Matt's being passive there. All right, so Matt is not actually doing the injuring, but we're trying to emphasize Matt's injury. So we're going to use passive voice on purpose. And if you really don't know who did it, you can use passive voice. His wallet was stolen last week. You can still avoid that by saying someone stole his wallet last week, or some criminal stole a thief stole his wallet last week. You can do that if you want to. But these are the 3 times when it is okay to use passive voice. So in your next writing assignment, if you use passive voice and you don't need to use passive voice, then you should fix it. If you use passive voice and you feel like, I really need this passive voice here because I want to avoid blame, or I'm trying to emphasize the recipient instead of the doer of the action, or I just really don't know who did it, then you can annotate and leave me a note explaining, I used passive voice here, but this is why I did it. And I think this is a good choice. All right. One of the great things about annotating is when you make a stylistic choice, you can argue it. You can argue your case to me, and I'll say, yeah, I agree with you, or I'll say, I don't know, I still don't like it, but I at least respect your choice. So to review, active, the subject is engaged in the action, whatever the verb is in the sentence. Passive, the subject is not participating actively. The subject might be doing something else, but the subject is not doing the verb that's in the sentence, right? So let's do a little bit of practice. I have a few sentences here for you to take a look at. I want you to read each one, decide whether it's active or passive voice. And if they are passive voice, try to change them into active voice or make a case for why they should stay passive voice. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. And if you need more time, as always, pause your recording and finish up. I do want you to think through all of the examples when we have practice time. That will help you tremendously. It will help you a lot more than just sitting and looking at the sentences. So we'll go over them in just a moment.